Hey everybody, it's PJ from Wisconsin Air Gunners. Last fall, we had an opportunity to bring the Diana Model 48 to the bench. And based on your response to that video, an opportunity has presented itself to bring you the Diana Model 460 Magnum in 22 cal. So let's do another box to bench. Before we get going, I would like to express my thanks to my friends at Diana over in Germany. Without them, this video wouldn't be possible. This is a sponsored video, but like all my videos, the opinions contained heretofore and within are solely mine and mine alone. This 460 comes to me direct from the North American importer. It's available in North America from a number of different retailers, including Pyramid Air. As it is a spring-powered air gun, the inside of the box is fairly straightforward, mostly just including the air gun. There's no fill adapter, there is nothing that you need other than the air gun itself in order to get out and get right to shooting. The 460 Magnum has iron sights, so no need to mount a scope. We will do a quick clean of the barrel, and we've got 3 different pellets to try, all by JSB. We're going to do some 15 grain, then we're going to do the Hades, which are also in that weight range, and then we're going to try 18 ones. We're going to do velocity, see what a 10 shot string looks like. Then we're going to get you a trigger pull weight, and finally a little bit of open sight accuracy. So let's get right to it. So the Diana Model 46 Magnum is, in this case, a 22 caliber under lever spring powered air gun. It is designed in Germany. This is one of what they consider to be sort of an heirloom quality air gun, meaning that they anticipate this will give you not only a complete your life of service, but probably, if you take care of it, your kids and maybe even your grandkids could have a lifetime of shooting out of this. They are understandably proud of the work they've done, not only on the 460 Magnum, but their Model 48 and their Model 54. I have experience with the 48, and it's a great air gun. The simplicity of this really brings you back to the joy of shooting, where you can simply go out with this air gun and just shoot. You don't need any more support equipment. And these rifles have a great following. I did run a patch through the barrel. It didn't really take much more than one patch with ballistol and then one more to kind of clean everything out. The barrel was very clean and not a lot of gunk or anything like that that you sometimes see in barrels when they're set up for shipping. Really, the controls on this are quite simple. You have a front sight here, a back sight or rear sight that is adjustable for windage and elevation. The cocking mechanism is a simple rod that you just pull free, pull down, then you load the pellet into the breech, and there is a lever on this side, and this releases the anti-bear trap mechanism, which really is an important safety feature of any of these, either under levers or side levers. Basically, there's a series of teeth that hold this open while you load the pellet, and then you release the safety so that you can move this forward and this moves forward. And that saves you from having your fingers in there while something lets loose, and now you have chopped fingers, which is no good. Nobody wants that. The safety is on the back. It auto sets, and then you push it in to release the safety so you're ready to fire. The loading sequence is pretty simple. You pull down on this rod, which is the rod below the barrel. This has to come all the way down. I like to hold on to this as much as possible. Just eliminates any possibility of this coming forward under spring tension. The pellet gets loaded directly into the breech, and then this tab gets pushed forward, which allows you to swing that arm up and lock it back into position. Safety is here. Push it forward so you can fire. It is not resettable unless you go through the cocking procedure again. And then you take the shot. It is a two-stage trigger, so you're going to take up some slack, you're going to find the brake, and then pull cleanly through. We'll get a weight on that in just a little bit. I have the air gun loaded, safety is off. We are pointed down a closed range in a safe direction. I've got my Lyman trigger scale zeroed and ready to go. You really shouldn't dry fire springers, so it's a little bit more challenging to get a trigger reading off a springer than it is on a PCP that you can dry fire, but I think we can do it. That is 1 pound, 2.7 ounces. That is 1 pound, 6.5 ounces. 1 pound, 4.8 ounces. So we're right around 1.25 pound. 1.4, somewhere in there on average. That's a nice trigger. Can definitely, 1.46, 1 pound, 4.6 ounces is the average. Definitely do some great stuff with that. So, one thing I didn't really talk about, excuse me, is the stock. This is beautiful hardwood. The checkering, and this is all the stuff that you guys aren't going to see or be able to tell from a video, but the checkering is just really, really nicely grippy. Sharp without like cutting your fingers sharp, but definitely something that you can see, being there and standing the test of time. The bluing on the rifle is really nice. Of course, it shows a ridiculous amount of fingerprints, and you're going to want to wipe it down after every time you go out and shoot. Well, you're not going to want to. You should after every time, especially if you're out here on a day like today in the Florida heat with a thunderstorm to boot. I'm sweating like crazy, and the rifle's definitely getting the worst of it. So I've got the FX True Ballistic Chronograph set up here. Let's get some numbers for you. With what I consider the standard 18.1 grain JSBs, we had a high on a 10-shot string of 654 and a low of 640 with an average of 646. With the Hades, which are a little bit lighter, we had a high of 694, a low of 678, and an average of 685. So that spread was just a little bit bigger at 16 feet per second top to bottom, which really isn't bad. And then when we went to the 15.9 grain pellets, pretty much the same weight as the Hades, but a different design. They had a high of 702, a low of 687, and an average of 694. So that's a 15 foot per second spread standard deviation of 4.1. Really pretty close across all the pellets, given the weight differential. So in terms of the power plant and how consistent the velocity is, with the 3 pellets I tested, and you can kind of watch somebody shoot a PCP and move through it fairly quickly to see someone shoot a whole string. Honestly, watching somebody cock and load and then shoot for 30 shots to get the strings, that's even boring by my standards. So not going to show you that on film, but you've seen what the numbers are. If we go over to the Pyramid Air energy calculator and we put in the pellet weight on, not sure if you can hear that, but we have a thunderstorm. If we put that in, we're looking at about 17 foot-pounds of energy. If we put the 18s in, looking at about 17. So I'm going to call it 17 foot-pounds, on the heavy side of 17 foot-pounds. And some of you will say, hey PJ, this is supposed to be the 460 Magnum. What I would encourage you to think about when you think about this rifle is that it's a Magnum powered rifle compared to other rifles in Diana's lineup. And you have to think about it in terms of Germany being, I think it's a 7.5 joule limit, which comes around to about like 5.5 foot-pounds. So as far as Diana's manufacturing of other rifles, this one actually is pretty powerful compared to some of their other spring-powered air guns. It isn't Magnum on the scale of Dirty Harry Magnum Force. You're just not going to get that. But what I think you do want to see is what does accuracy look like. So if I can get this to happen before the rain hits, we're going to throw a target camera downrange and let's shoot some groups with these 3 pellets. If you stuck with me this far, you've seen some groups, you have an idea what the velocity is doing, and you know what the trigger pull's like. You may want to know a little bit about what I think. So let's start out with the groups. The JSB 18 ones were, I would say, okay. The squares on the target are 1 inch, so that's probably somewhere around 1.25 inches center to center. Not great, not awful. If we were just doing some backyard plinking, hitting steel cans, every one of those would be a center punch, no problems at all. When we lighten it up a little bit and we go with the JSB 15 grain, that group's a little smaller. All of those are basically within 1 inch box, so that's an under 1 inch group. Again, we're only shooting at 15 yards. Oh, got stuff flying. That breeze feels nice though. Only shooting at 15 yards, but I am shooting iron sights. And the challenge for precision shooting with this style of sight is it's impossible for my eyes at their age to focus both on the sights and the target at the same time. It's just a function of the way my eyes work. So if I were shooting pistol and we were talking about bigger targets, I don't worry about it because I can hit those just fine. But when we're trying to hit a bullseye that's, you know, a 1/2 inch, that's a different story. So I've mentioned this earlier, there will be a second video on this air gun, and that's going to include putting a scope on it. I've got an Element Optics Helix ready to go on it. I'm going to put it in some of Diana's own recoil arresting mounts, and so we'll set that up and we'll stretch the legs on this 460 Magnum and see what we can do at longer ranges with a more precise sighting system. When we went to the Hades, this is where I started to get excited. The Hades is a dedicated hunting pellet. If you've never really paid attention to them at all, they have kind of a radiation symbol nose. It does reduce their ballistic coefficient just a little bit, but there's something about that head shape that really transfers a lot of energy into the target. And so if you're looking at a pellet that you want to use for pest control, the Hades is a pretty good option. So I shot 2 groups. You've seen them both, one sped up and one at kind of normal speed. Both groups have 15 yards, not super long distance, but a comfortable backyard distance. And here are those groups. Both of those are well under 1 inch, and I'll do an analysis on those, and that second one, that may be close to 1/2 inch. And for a Springer, for a guy who's not a Springer shooter, I'm really pleased with that. So I have no complaints about the accuracy, and I think the potential is there for this gun to be even more accurate at longer ranges. So let me know in the comments what you'd like to see in terms of an accuracy test. I won't probably be shooting it at 100 yards. I know that there are folks out there who are that good with the artillery hold and are doing some amazing things shooting Springers. I'm not that guy, but I do think I'd like to see what this is doing at 45 and 50 yards, especially with a decent optic. So, a couple of final thoughts before we wrap the video. I find myself, every time I get one of these Diana spring guns in my hand, wishing that the first adult purchase I had made with an air gun would have been something like, well, the 460 or the Model 48. I went the cheap big box route, what I could get in town, and I can remember back in about 2015 spending almost an entire year trying to get 1-inch groups at 15 and 20 yards with something I bought locally and some pellets I got at a local store. And honestly, it was an exercise in frustration and if a good friend of mine hadn't come along with a Daystate Airwolf, I don't know that I'd be in the position I am now, because yeah, I was ready to kind of give it in. If you're looking at getting into air guns and thinking about a break barrel, do yourself a favor and look to one of the, I hate to make it about expense, but honestly it has to do with expense. The Diana rifles are great. There are a couple other airgun manufacturers that are making underlevers and break barrels, you know, in that $300, $400, $500 price range. Do yourself a favor and you're going to have a much better, longer shooting experience with less frustration trying something like this. Now personally, between the break barrels and underlevers, or like the Model 48, the side lever, I much prefer the underlever style. And I like it because the barrel and the action stay together as one unit. They're not constantly pivoting down. And while there are a number of things, and Diana makes some break barrels, there are a number of things that companies have done to try to reduce the possibility that there will be droop in the barrel. It is a concern for the traditional break barrel rifle. And this just eliminates all of that, because it keeps everything in line, and then the only thing you're moving is the lever itself. So give me that if I'm given the choice. This gun is easy to load. It's got a nice wide loading port. It's easy for me to get my fat fingers in there to put a pellet in. It helps that it's a 22. The pellets are just bigger, so they're easier to manipulate. I like, for a traditional looking rifle, I like the look of this. I do like a pistol grip, and I really like my bullpups in air guns, but if I'm going to shoot a traditional rifle, this is a very comfortable one. It's got just enough of a swell to get good eye relief, especially when you're using the iron sights that are just sitting right above the barrel. The wood finish on here is really nice. I don't know what wood they use, but I do like that it has some character and some grain structure. Some of the stocks you see on some air rifles are just, yeah, it's wood, but you wouldn't know it because you can see that it was a real growing thing. And this one just has some really nice patterning in it. You have a dovetail rail up top with a number of drilled out stops, so mounting an optic won't be a problem for us. The trigger, as you've seen, is really great. It's a two-stage trigger. You come back, you feel the stop, and then you pull through, and she goes. Under 1.5 pounds, close to 1.25 pounds is a really nice trigger. You can shoot that all day long. Not what I would consider a ton of recoil, but there is some recoil, more than what you'd experience with a PCP. Nice rubberized or rubber butt pad to soak anything up that would be coming into your shoulder, so it's not going to be something that scares somebody if it's their first time shooting. It's not something that if you put a scope on, it's likely to, you know, scope your eye or do anything that anybody, nothing that would turn anybody off to the shooting sports. The checkering on this is really, really good. You know, kind of this like bam, pow design. Very traditional looking, excellent grip on the grip here. Really, well, I was shooting it out in the rain yesterday, so it got wet yesterday and I had no problems. I've been sweating over it. It's been rained on. It's definitely going to need a little bit of a wipe down with some ballistol just to keep the metal finish nice, because this is meant to be, and this is the thing with Diana's performance line, this is meant to be an heirloom gun. This is meant to be the kind of air gun that you take care of it and you're going to be able to pass on to your kids, and you know, in all likelihood, they're going to be able to pass on to theirs, because it's really kind of a bulletproof design. It's interesting to me that a lot of the comments that I've received on the first Diana review I did on the Model 48 were from people who've had a Model 48 forever, and they loved seeing something about a rifle that they really cherished and have had great experiences with. So if you're in that camp with this, whether it was a Diana or one of the ones that was released under the RWS line, I hope you enjoyed seeing one of your favorites up on the screen. It's a great rifle, and if you're a fan, I absolutely understand why you're a fan. I think that's going to wrap it for this one. I've already got some ideas churning for what we're going to do on the next Model 460 video, because that'll be coming out in a couple weeks. So until that time, and until the next video, everybody shoot safe, shoot straight, and we'll see you around.